Realtors often get a bad rap because some are pushy and a multitude of other things that I've heard consumers call us. And for many of those reasons, it's true. You need to be prepared for some of those red flags and tactics that some agents use. So whether you're looking to buy a house or sell a house, let's talk about what you should be on the lookout for. Now, as of August 17th, 2024, there was a new rule put in place by the National Association of Realtors. This now requires buyers to have a signed buyer-broker agreement with an agent before they go look at homes. So because of that, I thought it would be a good idea to talk about these red flags and tactics that you might run into when you're talking to a real estate agent. So you can be on the lookout because it is important for you to be represented by someone who has your best interest at the forefront. The agent you work with needs to be your advocate, not just someone that's trying to sell you a home. Now, like I have said, many people view real estate agents as useless or greedy or a few other choice words that I have heard people call us. And I'm not going to argue that some have made us look really bad, and we are often categorized right down there with used car salesmen. But just like some other professions that are not always looked at in the highest light, not all of us are bad. There are some great agents out there, and I'm just going to say it, like me, who truly advocate for their clients and work really hard to ensure that all of your questions are answered and that you are buying the right home for you and your family. We truly do want to help, and we want to turn a very stressful situation into something that is as easy as possible. Unfortunately, not all realtors are like that. So let's dive into the things that you need to be aware of to make sure you are working with an agent who is actually looking out for you. And the number one thing is, don't worry about the rate. When it comes down, you can just refinance. I hear this a lot, and I don't love it. I do understand what they're saying, but I feel like this can be somewhat misleading because the reality is no one really knows what's going on with the interest rate. What you will hear a lot of agents say with this is marry the house, date the rate, meaning get the house now and then refinance when the interest rates come down. And here's my issue with this. The buyer still needs to be able to afford the house right now. To me, this somewhat insinuates that it's okay if you can't afford the house because as soon as the rates drop, you refinance and it'll all be okay. And I personally don't think anyone should stretch themselves so far that should an emergency come up, they have no way to address it. I also feel a little bit this way when I hear people talk about the rate buydowns as the perfect solution to higher interest rates. Because what I don't hear them say is that the buyer has to still qualify at that higher interest rate. You also have to know that after 1 or 2 years, however long that rate buydown is, if the interest rates do not go down, your mortgage rate is going to now adjust to that higher rate. And guess what happens to your payment? The payment goes up. Now, I do still think that the rate buydown can be a great tool to use to help people get into the market. But you just have to know that if the worst case scenario happens, you are not going to be caught off guard. Now, with both of these situations, you can refinance if the rate comes down. However, when you refinance, it's going to cost you money. You will often hear lenders say they have a no money down refinance program. But what that really means is that you do not have to come out of pocket at the close with any money, but you are still going to be charged fees. Where do those fees go? They get tacked onto the principal balance of your loan. But here's the real issue. In either of these situations, your real estate agent can be answering some broad questions for you, but where you need to focus most of these questions is to a mortgage lender. So real estate agents that are answering any and all questions about this without telling you to go talk to a lender, that's a red flag. Because the reality is that mortgage lender can look at your entire financial situation and help you get answers to the questions that you really need. They can give you different scenarios about what if the rate goes to this and how much am I going to have to put down so that you can make the best decision for your situation. Now, number 2 is when an agent is pushing you to buy a home that needs a lot of work. Now, if you are looking at a home that does need a ton of work and you have specifically said to the agent, I don't want this type of a home, yet the agent continually tells you what great potential a home has, this is a red flag. To add to this red flag, if the home is also off the market, meaning that it's not on MLS, and they're trying to tell you, oh, this is a great deal, and it's not even live on MLS yet, to me, this is kind of a double whammy of red flags. Doing updates on a home is costly and time-consuming. And if this is something that you are not okay with, yet the agent you're working with continually tries to push you in that direction, this usually means that they're just trying to sell you a home so they can move on. This is not for your best interest, it's for theirs. I know that sounds harsh, but it's true. Now, if you are okay with doing work to the home, that is a completely different story. And I have had clients that have changed their mind halfway through the process. But trying to talk you into something specifically that you don't want, major red flag. I'm also going to include if the home that they're trying to talk you into is in not a very desirable location. And I'm not talking about maybe a bad neighborhood. I mean a home that's backing a busy road or maybe under gigantic power lines. These are also red flags, meaning the agent is just trying to sell you something. Because buying a home in either of those situations is not going to be good for you when it comes to reselling the home later. And for any of those reasons, I would find yourself a different agent. Now, number 3 is when agents continually show you homes over your price point. Now, before the pandemic, I would often send my clients homes that were just slightly over their price point because we could negotiate. Then when the pandemic hit, I honestly would send my clients homes under their price point, knowing how much higher the prices were going to keep them still within their budget. And now it's just going to depend on a few things like the area, the price point, and how long the home has been on the market. But if you're working with an agent that is only sending you homes over your price point, this means the agent is not listening to you, nor are they working in your best interest. Right now, every city, state, and neighborhood is somewhat different when it comes to this. So my advice would be if the agent isn't explaining this to you before they start sending you homes sounding something like this. So I'm going to set up a search for you, and I'm going to send you homes in the price point we talked about, as well as a little bit higher. Now, I know we talked about a specific price point, and the only reason I'm going to push your price point a little bit higher is because in the area we're looking, we've got some room for flexibility and negotiation. So maybe the home has been sitting on the market a little bit longer, the seller's going to have to negotiate. If the home needs a little bit of work, the seller's going to have to negotiate. So we'll take these one at a time, but I just wanted to let you know before you get the list, if you see homes above your price point, that's the reason I'm doing it. If the agent isn't explaining things like this to you, that is another red flag. It's telling you that they are either not listening to you and or they're not a great communicator. And neither of those are great. Now, number 4 is if they pressure you to overbid on the home. Now, are there times that you're going to have to pay over the list price to get the home? Yes. But if the agent isn't showing you a complete list of comparables as well as market data to show you what is going on in that area to justify why they're telling you to overbid on the home, this is a red flag. Agents who are working in the best interest of their clients are going to be able to support the price point or price range that they're suggesting to their clients using specific data and comparables to show the buyer why they're suggesting what they're suggesting. But the ultimate person that's going to make the decision on what to pay for the house is you, the buyer. Because I can tell a buyer all day long what I know and what I feel this home is going to sell for, and it will all be based on comps and the data that I look at. But if the buyer's not willing to pay it, it doesn't matter. And if your agent is pushing you really hard to make an offer higher than you're willing to, major red flag. I always tell my buyers, the home could be really nice and have almost everything that you ever wanted in the home. But if you don't love the home, don't buy it. Number 5 is when the home has been sitting on the market for a while, then all of a sudden it has multiple offers. So this tactic is used by some listing agents when a buyer's agent calls to express some interest for their buyer, and the selling agent now feels like it's going to create all of this urgency to let this buyer's agent know, we have just gotten another offer. And I am just going to say this as clear as I can. This is a terrible idea, and I have seen it backfire multiple times. The big problem about this tactic is that oftentimes the seller has no idea that it's even gone on. But for the buyers, if you are working with an agent who is truly advocating for you and hears this, especially if the home has been on the market for a while, the first thing they're going to do is pause. Then they're going to start asking more questions. The next step is they're going to talk to their client and explain everything that's happened and give them options. But if for any reason the agent you're working with starts to push you really hard into making an offer after they've explained what's gone on, red flag. And as the buyer, you should pause and maybe think about working with a different agent. Now I wanted to share a few tactics and red flags specifically for sellers. Number 1 is when an agent suggests a really low price. Now the strategy behind this is that with a really low price, it could generate multiple offers and a bidding war. Here's the problem. After what we've just come out of, no buyer wants to get involved in a bidding war. In fact, many buyers out there right now, if they even sense that's going to be a bidding war, they will back off. I have had some buyers personally feel this and tell me, you know what? Let's just sit back, wait, and see what happens. And sometimes they've lost the house. Other times it's worked in their favor. But regardless, they want no part of a bidding war. So that tactic ultimately ends up costing the seller money. The other thing it does is it starts the negotiations off negatively, with the buyer feeling like they're just being taken advantage of by the seller. And even if this is not true, That perception is very hard to change. Number 2 is when the listing agent is telling you that the home is worth a lot more or agreeing with you about a price that is way off the mark. And what this means is the agent is just trying to get the listing. And what their strategy and tactic is that get the listing in the next 2 to 3 weeks, I'll go back to the seller and I will tell them the market's shifted and we now need to lower your price. The hard part about this is that every seller wants to get the most amount of money for their home. And I have yet to meet a seller that isn't proud of their home. But if you are interviewing 3 agents, and you should, and 2 agents have a similar price range, and the other agent has a vastly different range and much higher, and if they can't give you really specific data and comps and a rationale as to why they feel the home is priced that way and how quickly that it might sell, they are only trying to get your listing, and they will be hitting you up for a price reduction. This idea of setting the price high enough so that you have room to negotiate is a bad strategy as well. Buyers will negotiate with a seller who they feel is being reasonable with their pricing and fair. Setting your price as close to the number that you feel like it will ultimately sell for, this is the best way for you to get the highest amount of money in the shortest amount of time. And any agent that is trying to shoot for the moon on pricing, red flag. So with all these red flags and tactics in mind, when you are looking for an agent to help you buy or sell a home, especially since the new rules from NAR came out saying that buyers have to have a buyer broker agreement signed before you look at any homes, it's important to do a few things first. 1, you should interview a few agents, I say about 3. This is going to give you a sense of their experience, their knowledge, and how they would handle things for you. Something that I will usually talk with potential clients about is, how do you like to be communicated with? Do you like email, text, or phone calls? Because you are going to be communicating with this person a lot, especially once you get under contract on something. So making sure that everyone is on the same page right from the beginning is a critical move. Now, the best way to find an agent is to get a referral from friends or family, maybe someone that you work with, or maybe from a YouTube channel. From there, you should be asking them how long they've been selling real estate, and are they doing this full time, and how many homes have you sold? From there, I would ask them about some of the more challenging transactions that they've had and how did they get through it. You want to have a very open and frank conversation with this person. You need the conversation to kind of flow so that everyone's feeling comfortable. If you're talking with an agent that is continually trying to pin you down into signing that buyer broker agreement, that is a huge red flag, because you need someone that is willing to sit and answer any and all questions that you have and answer them in a way that makes sense to you. From there, you need to understand that buyer broker agreement before you sign it. You need to understand why we're using it, how it works, and what it means to you as a buyer. The agent needs to be able to explain why we're using this and what the buyer should expect once they sign it. And if you want to learn more about that, make sure you watch this video. As always, I thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.